hashtag AskBQ to BloombergQuint.com. Write to us now. Use the word Ramdev in all your queries.
Good evening, you're watching Bloomberg Quint Live. I'm Alex Matthew. It's been a bit of a frenzy in trade today, and there's lots to tell you about. So what did you miss? The Nifty PSU Bank Index gains more than 30% in a single trading session, taking the Nifty and Sensex to new records. Hindustan Unilever beats estimates in the second quarter, posts a volume growth of 4% in the quarter gone by. Reliance Communications decides to pull the plug on its wireless business, will transfer some of its high-value customers to its enterprise vertical. It's going to be a two-phased election in Gujarat with voting on December 9 and 14. Counting will take place on the 18th of December. An External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson send a stern message to Pakistan, ask it to dismantle the terror infrastructure on its soil. Now, it's been a strong day of gains with both the benchmark indices ending the day at record levels. Let's head across to Yatin Mota, who's standing by with a wrap of what has happened in trade today. Yatin, it's been a bit of a struggle to look past the big rally in PSU bank stocks, but there are a lot of other counters that have moved sharply.
But Alex, it's all about banks for trade today. Look at the move, how that has come in the PSU banking lot. Also for ICICI Bank, the move was great. But talking about the Nifty, we ended the Nifty level close to 10,300 mark, quite strong on the Nifty, despite the fact that a lot of private sector banks were down. If you look at the advance decline ratio also, that was probably close to 1:1. But SBI, that stock gained 27% in trade today, adding close to 60,000 crores in market capitalization. And also we have, counters like ICICI Bank, Ultratech, L&T, which are the key contributors to the Nifty. On the flip side, we have private sector banking stocks, barring ICICI Bank, which were quite weak. So a Yes Bank, Kotak Bank, despite a good set of earnings, HDFC Bank remained the top losers in trade today. However, we saw some profit taking happening in mid caps also. Edelweiss, L&T Finance, Canfin Homes saw intraday declines of over 8% each. As far as other PSU banks are concerned, and they need a special mention for trade today, we had PNB and Canara Bank gaining over 40% in intraday trade. Also, we have Union Bank, Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, all of these stocks gaining anywhere between 25 to 30%. So clearly it was a day of PSU banks, wherein the PSU Bank Nifty gained over 1 lakh crore in market capitalization. Of course, on the other side, we have a lot of NBFCs declining in trade, and in general, there was profit taking in the mid caps. But clearly, it was a day of PSU banks and only banks.
Thanks for that, Yatin. Now, I want to speak a little bit more about the banking space. Of course, Yatin's taken you through the broad highlights, but the 2 lakh crore lifeline for PSU banks obviously sent the stocks on a tear. Many of these stocks have broken their records today. Shraddha Babla is here to give us a little more detail on that story.
While Nifty Bank rallied 3.8% today, it was actually the best day ever for the Nifty PSU Bank Index, which rose as much as 30% in intraday trade. That's the most since January 2014. In fact, 2004, sorry. In fact, shares of SBI also rallied as much as 28%, the most in 8.5 years, while that of Punjab National Bank climbed as much as 49%, the biggest intraday ever in its listed history. In fact, private corporate banks like ICICI Bank and Axis Bank also joined the PSU Bank rally as they stand to benefit from any cleaning up and speeding up of the NPLs from the system. On the other hand, you had shares of relatively overvalued retail private banks like IndusInd Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC Bank and Yes Bank, all of which dropped as much as 4 to 10%. So that's the kind of divergence that we have seen in the banking space today. Having said that, most of the analysts believe that the proposed capital allocation will take care of both the capital requirements and help restore the asset quality of PSU banks. If you look at what Motilal Oswal had to say, is that they turned constructive on PSU banks after yesterday's announcements. They've said that they believe that the banks that are short on capital and have a higher quantum of bad loans will benefit more, and they have reiterated their buy rating on Punjab National Bank, SBI and Bank of Baroda. Morgan Stanley has double upgraded ICICI Bank, Punjab National Bank and SBI to overweight from underweight, with target price hikes of 32%, 95% and 47% respectively. Nomura also believes that the recapitalization package would drive re-rating in PSU banks, and they expect the highest positive impact to come in for Punjab National Bank, which they have rated as buy. And lastly, Kotak now has said that they're a lot more comfortable to own frontline large cap banks like SBI and private banks also, such as ICICI Bank or even Axis Bank, and they would avoid most of the smaller public sector banks given the risk of book value dilution.
Thanks for that, Shraddha. You've obviously had a busy day. But moving on, the Reserve Bank of India has lauded the Cabinet's plan on recapitalization. In a statement today, Governor Urjit Patel said that issuing recapitalization bonds would help front-load capital injection while staggering the fiscal implications over a period of time. The plan will be liquidity neutral for the government, except for the interest expense that should not be a major burden on the annual fiscal deficit numbers. The statement adds that the RBI is looking forward to working with the government to ensure that these plans are completed to the benefit of the Indian economy. But moving to the big earnings of the day, let's start off with HUL. The country's largest FMCG player posted a 4% volume growth in the quarter gone by. Agam Vakil joins in with all the details. Agam, over to you.
Well, thanks for that, Alex. When it comes to HUL, we are looking at about a 4% growth in terms of your volumes, and your profit has moved up by as much as 16.4%, and that's the big surprise as far as HUL's second quarterly earnings go. This is, of course, on a year-on-year basis. Net sales gaining nearly 6%, standing at a little over 8,300 crores. Let's also take a look at the margins, and we have seen an expansion of 230 basis points, considering the kind of expansion in raw materials that the advantage has brought. So as you can see here, your EBITDA has moved up as nearly 20%, and your margins moving up at around 20.2%, so that's another advantage coming in. We have seen robust growth when it comes to your home care as well as personal space, and those are some of the segments that have contributed to the bottom line coming ahead of consensus expectations.
Thanks for that, Agam. Now, Kotak Mahindra Bank has reported a steady set of numbers for the September quarter. Shraddha Babla is back with the key highlights. Shraddha, smooth sailing for Kotak Mahindra Bank?
Well, yes, no surprises here really. So the past growth trends that we have seen for Kotak Mahindra Bank continued into this quarter as well. Net interest income grew 16.5%. Net profit came in about 22% higher at 994 crores, broadly in line with what the street was expecting. The one disappointing factor was that the net interest margin fell to 4.33% versus 4.5% in the previous quarter, which was actually at an 8-quarter low. But if you look at some of the other factors like the operating profit, that grew by a strong 20%. We had provisions that were pretty steady on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Loan book growth came in at 21%. CASA deposits growth came in at 42%. In fact, the CASA share has risen from 43.9% in the June quarter to 47.8%. Even on a consolidated basis, the net profit grew about 20% as all the subsidiaries delivered well on the quarterly performance. So overall, a good steady quarter for Kotak Mahindra Bank.
Thanks for that, Shraddha. Now, the top 4 IT companies have now all come out with their second quarter earnings. And while none have disappointed on the revenue front, it's the outlook that has got analysts worried. So who among TCS, Wipro, Infosys and HCL Tech has emerged the strongest, and what are the key takeaways? Agam Vakil's here to tell us all about it.
So when I stacked up all the top 4 IT companies and put them together, the results were interesting. Let's start off with the revenues, and for all the 4 companies, the revenues were in line with consensus expectations, but TCS stood out here with about 3.2% growth, beating the other 3. Moving on, as far as margins go too, once again, not only has TCS come up with the best margins at well over 25.1%, but it also has seen the most amount of expansion at about 170 basis points. But that said, what does it mean for the guidance going forward? Well, starting off with Infosys, they have cut their guidance. This was more or less in line with expectations. For Wipro, well, it was disappointing to see about 0 to 2% guidance for the next quarter. TCS, of course, doesn't give you revenue guidance, but it will be very hard for them to make that 26% mark in terms of EBIT margins. And finally, HCL Technologies, as you can see, maintaining their guidance. But what does it mean in terms of valuations and the street preference? As you can see here, the cheapest are Infosys and HCL Technologies in terms of valuation, but there is more of a preference too for something like an HCL Technologies with 3.9 of 5 in terms of rating and a 7% return potential from current market levels.
Thanks for that, Agam. Now, Reliance Communications has decided to shut down its wireless business. The beleaguered telecom operator will transfer some of its high-value customers to its enterprise business. Sajid Mangad broke this exclusive story. Sajid, it can't get any tougher for the Anil Ambani Group company, can it?
That's right. For the Anil Ambani Group company, the operations of or operating the telecom, operating in a telecom space is getting tougher day by day. What the group has now decided is to shut down the wireless 2G business, which is basically the voice telephony business, which it offers to over 40 million customers. As of end of November 30th, this business will be shut down, and the remaining business which is left in the wireless division, which is of international voice business, which is consumer broadband, and you have 4G dongles on a post-paid basis. All these three basic companies or divisions would be merged with the enterprise business which they have. This entire announcement comes a day after they had decided not to renew their DTH business, which was up for renewal on November 21st. And so, as you go forward, you will see a lot of disruption with respect to the customers are going to come in. That's going to happen because all these customers will have to migrate to other competitors and partners going forward. It's also good. It's also important to note that how the lenders are going to react to this is something which we will be watching out for. The company was expected to come out with a statement with detailing how it's going to transition it. That statement hasn't come in yet, and we expect that something of that sort would be announced to the stock exchanges at the earliest.
Thanks for that, Sajid. We'll watch out for that statement. But moving on, after much criticism over a delay in announcing the dates for the Gujarat elections, the Election Commission has come out with the schedule for the poll-bound state this afternoon. Gujarat will go to vote in 2 phases on the 9th and 14th of December, the results of which will be announced on the 18th of December. Here's the Chief Election Commissioner.
9th December for first phase and 14th December for second phase. Date of counting will be 18th December for both the phases. 18th December, that is Monday. Next important aspect is webcasting and CCTV at polling stations. Webcasting would be undertaken at the identified critical polling station for live monitoring of the election process, to keep a check on the illegal activities such as booth capturing, money distribution, bogus voting, and to bring complete transparency in the voting process would be undertaken.
Well, hopefully that helped you catch up on all that's happened in trade today. You can log on to the website bloombergquint.com for more. Do stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint Live. This is Bloomberg Quint.